Hey, welcome back, everybody. It's Sarcasm Speaks. Jared and Bob here. Game two of the triple threat for us here, but last week or whatever, we just talked about airplanes. Now we're going to talk about politics. It's like the autism special. And I think the third one, I get some stuff teed up about sports, right? So we got airplanes, sports, and politics. That is the
We might not even get to the topic if we just start randomly talking about fucking whatever.
yeah,
This could
maybe
be
we'll
three
start
shows
talking
because
about trains.
very realistically, this could be three shows about nothing.
Yeah. All right, so this is pretty good. I want to get to what you just sent me, but I'm gonna start out with the government. And Trump came out, and one of the things he's done is order all federal employees back to the office, right? So um, for a while, but since COVID, really, federal employees have not been mandated to be in the office. So the federal government has buildings all over the country that are just sitting empty, right? And they're not being used. So I deal with this all the time, right? Being in corporate real estate, um, seeing that these massive corporations have these buildings that they're paying rent on, right? Some depending on the location and the size of the building, like some of these places might go for like 50 grand a month, right? Like maybe 90, 100 grand a month, right? If you're in downtown New York and you're in one of those, you're on the 45th floor of some size skyscraper, you might be looking at like 100 grand a month in rent. Um, so all of these places, right, for corporations, for private companies, right, or publicly traded companies, right, anything that's non-government, that's a problem, right? Because you are wasting money, right? And you need to be profitable, right? A business needs to be profitable so they don't go out of business, right? That's kind of it's kind of business 101, right? You need to have a profit. So if you're wasting money on corporate real estate locations that are not being utilized, you either need to bring the people back to utilize it or you need to let the lease expire. The unfortunate thing about corporate real estate and a lot of this is these leases. So sometimes 5,
Well,
10, 15,
I don't
some
know
very
if they're.
rarely, but sometimes you'll see a 20-year lease.
I was
Most
to
of the
say
ones I've
a lot
seen,
of these big rentals, like
yeah,
the big ones, are like 20.
most of the ones I've seen are between 10 and 15. Some of them have like a 5 year opt out, or they have like a 5 year, um, I don't know, regroup option, or it'll be like a 15-year lease after 7 years. There's a window opens up for renegotiation or something like that. So, whether that means the landlord wants to increase rent or the tenant wants to downsize or upsize, right? It's just there's different things written into leases that we don't need to
Yes.
really get into. But for the federal government, they don't generate revenue like a business. The way they get their money is by taxing you and me, right? So when the federal government is wasting money, they're wasting our money, right? So Trump got back into office, which, as an aside, is why you're starting to see all these massive companies like CVS, Amazon, um, whatever. All these huge companies are saying they're demanding their employees come back to work, right? The whole RTO, return to office push. Um, that again, it's a whole thing without going down the rabbit hole. It's very poorly planned because a lot of companies already offloaded their excess properties over the last 4 years since COVID. So now they're trying to make everyone come back and they're realizing they don't have enough office space for everybody because they just downsized all their offices since COVID because no one was coming in. And then they're like, shit, no one's still coming in. So what do we do? Oh, let's force everyone to come back. Full blown RTO, we're pre-pandemic, all this. And then everyone's freaking out. And then like Amazon just had to throw the brakes on their company-wide RTO because they realized, oh shit, in every major metropolitan area that we're in, whether it's, I think Boston, New York, Phoenix, LA, maybe Dallas or somewhere else in Texas, they realized, shit, we don't have enough seats for all the employees that we have in that region that we were going to force to come into the office. So like, all right, hold off on the full RTO. So whatever. Poorly planned on the business end. But the federal government, again, that's our money, right? That's the money they take from me and you. So Trump gets in and he goes, "Well, I think they might own a lot of the stuff or they whatever they lease or whatever. So they're going to start selling buildings or they're just going to say everyone's got to come back." Right? So that's what Trump did. He said every federal employee is now required to be in office every day. So federal employees, as you can imagine, didn't take kindly to that. They didn't like that. Some of them threatened to quit, and Trump was like, "Okay, fine, whatever. I don't give a shit." So what did he do? He just released something today that the administration offered all 2 million federal employees, every single one of them. He offered all of them a buyout to resign, which would, they estimate it's going to end up saving the taxpayers around $100 billion for whoever takes it, right? They're estimating however many people will accept the buyout and all that stuff. So from the White House press secretary today. American taxpayers pay for the salaries of federal government employees and therefore deserve employees working on their behalf who actually show up to work in our wonderful federal buildings, also paid for by taxpayers. If they don't want to work in the office and contribute to making America great again, then they are free to choose a different line of work, and the Trump administration will provide a very generous payout of 8 months, right? So
Yeah,
they
that's pretty
have
cool.
they have until I think I saw February 6th um, to resign, right? Or accept the buyout, and they will receive 8 months salary if they choose to resign from their position with the federal government.
I mean, so truth be told, I'm fairly torn, but I think that's fair. But I'm also fairly torn because I don't want people to just like lose their jobs for no reason. Like that shit kind of sucks.
Yeah, I mean they're given the
But
option.
well, and they are, but I was gonna say like if someone accepted the job on the pretense of not having to go in,
Fair, yeah,
because I'm sure that's what it was. But on the other hand, you kind of play with fire when you're employed by the federal government because every
yeah.
4 years something could
And that's
change.
that's what I was gonna say. The whole full RTO 5 days a week in the office is not a good strategy for private companies because there are enough companies, right, that are willing to adopt hybrid work permanently that people will just go work for those companies, right? And like a lot of people say, fine. There's a lot of stuff like we hear at our company because we tried to do that and then we kind of threw the brakes on because we had the same issues. Is it's a it's a quiet layoff, right? Because that's the thing. You have other companies that are willing to offer hybrid work. So any employee that doesn't want to be in the office will just leave, right? So it saves the company the hassle of laying off employees and firing them and dealing with unemployment payments and insurance and things like that because the employees will just leave on their own, right? So it's a sneaky way and it's kind of a shitty way to do that from the business standpoint. But at the end of the day, it's better for the business, right? So it's
You
it's
also
tough.
have
I
the
can
like
understand both sides of it.
so when companies, and this is not the federal government because the federal government is very different,
Right, and that's what I
but
mean. The federal government
when
is different.
when companies say, "Oh well, we're wasting money on rent," it's like, okay, well, how long is the lease? And the lease is like, oh, because if it so 5, 10, 20 doesn't matter.
The other thing with the federal government, I wouldn't be surprised if their leases are like 20, 30 years, right? Because
Dude, they might be 100
regardless
years. Like,
regardless of how big a company, take Amazon, right? Like regardless of the fact that it's Amazon, they are probably not going to sign a lease longer than 20 or 25 years. Just because, right? It's just business, right? You have no idea what your business is going to demand 2 decades from now. The federal
I think,
government is going to still be going, right?
yeah.
So that's what I mean. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if the federal government has like a 50-year lease on some buildings or something like that.
And yeah, I think most of these companies also just kind of buy their shit, but like Amazon definitely buys their shit. They ain't renting from anybody. Um,
Yeah, it depends on the
but
company.
depends on the company. But when a business says, "Oh well, we're wasting money on that space," like, dude, that's already a sunk cost. So if we're wasting money on that space, you don't gain any money back by people using it.
Right.
And if in the last 5 years or so the company has continued to grow and grow and grow and grow, you're not losing money on the space. Again, sunk cost. It's already in there. Do you need to be paying for it? No, but you are. Like, that's how that works.
Right.
But when it comes to the federal government, it's taxpayer stuff. It's not sale of pharmaceuticals. It's not sale of medical equipment. It's not technology.
Right.
It is strictly taxes and the people's taxes. So that's something like, you know, your boss is your boss, but your boss has no bearing on who pays your salary. And the president kind of supersedes your boss.
Right.
And ultimately, the taxpayers, by voting in a different person, they supersede your boss too, because they voted your boss out,
Right.
or your boss's, administration, an extension of your boss.
Right.
So that's why I'm torn because they were probably promised something that's being taken away. But if you're gonna work for the federal government, you should know that.
Right.
Like
Agreed.
every 4 years, something could change. You
Right.
never know what's gonna happen with the new administration. And it's a little different if you work for a post office, but I don't think there's any remote postal work.
Yeah, I don't think
I'm a
so.
remote mail carrier. You're a what?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, it sucks, but again, it's like if you combine that with the just general misuse of money, because that's really what I like. It's really a misuse of money.
And that's the underlying point that I was getting at is that Trump has been in for like a week at this point, maybe a week and a half, and he's doing, we said this on a previous episode, he's doing what he said he was going to do. And what he said he was going to do is he's going to cut government spending, right? So by offering everyone in the federal government an 8 month buyout on their salary, you're saving money, right? Yeah, you have to pay them for the next 8 months, but after that, their salary comes off the books, right? So now you owe less money to employees because you have less money, right? Or you have less employees, sorry.
The other thing
It's
too is it's a lump sum, and then anyone who gets hired gets moved into a different tax bracket. It's a whole thing,
right,
dude.
right,
Like,
right. So the other thing is what you sent me, right? So you wanna
yeah.
share that?
So my question with that was, I sent it to you guys. I said legit question mark, and it was from the press secretary. So I have no reason to believe it wasn't. Now
Yeah.
I didn't listen to it with volume, so there was nothing goofy, right?
No, 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 no.
Okay. And the federal government stopped a $50 million payment that was being sent to Gaza, which was penned as for condoms. So I believe that's probably an oversimplification. I'm sure that was probably like a they probably pegged it as like contraception and
Right.
health and safety measures and whatever.
Yeah.
$50 million. Yeah, okay. That wasn't gonna go to the war effort or the government. Like,
So
you're
the
kidding me,
so
right?
the sneaky thing about that is I saw that on Twitter and someone replied in the comments underneath with a different article and it had a video of a guy in Gaza that used he like blew up a condom. I don't know if he used helium or whatever, but they were putting ordinances inside of it to fly them over and like blow shit up. So the claim was that this $50 million program that was quote unquote going towards condoms was actually the Gazans using them as weapons, right? So on the books, you can say it's for prophylactics and health and all this other shit, but the way it was being used was as a weapon.
And so like a couple things came up. So obviously they stopped that payment.
They stopped that $50 million.
$50 million. They stopped that. So then, I'm sitting there and I'm like, because obviously, so it makes more sense that it's weapons. But it's like one of those things, like, let's pretend you didn't tell me the weapons part.
Yeah.
Pretty sure Muslims don't fucking operate that way. Like, I'm pretty sure, like, in their religion, I mean, they're Christians, right?
Muslims? No, they're Muslim.
Is that not the same?
No, it's not. It's very different, actually.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Sorry. I confused. Obviously, I'm fucking
It's
fucked up right
might
now.
quite literally be the opposite end of the Christian spectrum. They actually hate
Um,
Christians. Like
yeah, dude,
devout
my bad.
Muslims want
So,
to eradicate the world of Christianity.
yeah. So, my bad. Uh, I was like thinking back to when people used to talk about you have religions that believe in God and you have religions that believe in like many gods and
Yeah, so
whatever. So they
they are
used to make
they
the
are
argument that like, hey, Muslims, Christians, and Jews are all kind of like,
it's called the Abrahamic religions. So
yeah,
they all have the same story about a guy named Abraham.
right.
Yeah.
Christian was not the word I was looking for. I'm
No, no,
fucking
no.
dumb.
I know what you mean. You meant the Abrahamic religion. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, okay,
Monotheistic, Abrahamic.
right,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, details.
Yeah.
Uh, so I'm guessing that once again, they probably don't look super kindly upon that type of stuff. I mean, it's a very conservative religion, so
Yeah. I mean, they don't let women
then
expose anything other than
they,
their
yeah.
eyeballs.
So I'm guessing on paper that's probably not cool. So I'm like, that doesn't make any sense.
Right.
And it's like 50 million to Gaza.
Yeah.
They got it in by stock in fucking Durex or
A Trojan.
Trojan before this. Unless you knew that that was going to happen, in which case you short sailed it. That would be pretty cool.
Right. Yeah, that's true. Could have.
Um, so yeah, all in, like stop the fucking useless spending. Now the employee thing I don't think is as important as like stopping that bill from getting paid out. Because again, the employee thing is tough. Like again, dad's home. So if he says like you're all going to the office, well, unfortunately you're all going to the office.
Right.
Like that's just that. And that's how I see it. And it's like, can I be sympathetic that some people were probably sold into a job that changed on them? Yeah, I can be sympathetic to that. But federal appointments are great, but then you work for the federal government. Like that's sometimes not great.
Right. Right.
So it's tough. And I think an 8 month severance or an 8 month lump sum to just get out. I mean,
Yeah,
dude, that could be a pretty good deal.
it's pretty solid. I mean, depending on how long you've been there, right? If you've worked in the federal government for 15 years,
Those people,
eight
well,
eight months severance is not a lot. Like that's kind of shitty, right?
yeah, but they can also probably get like 100% of their pension. Like they can probably
True,
get some of
true.
that stuff
Yeah.
too, because that stuff would all get negotiated.
Like I knew people that worked at a massive pharmaceutical company that did layoffs, and the severance package was tied to their length of service. So there was one guy that got laid off that had been with the company for like 20 years, and he got an 18-month severance. So they they laid him off, but they paid him his salary for 18 months.
Yeah.
So, but then there were other people. There was someone that was only there for like 4 years, and he got like 4, 5, 6 months severance, I think, something like that. Like it wasn't a lot. Maybe it
Yeah.
was only 3 months. I don't know. It wasn't a lot.
Um, but yeah, I mean, if they're gonna stop, because again, because this is the thing that this is the only thing with like the come back to work, don't come back to work. If you just want people in the office, just say that. We want people in the office. Don't say like, oh, well, we're wasting money. It's like, no, you're still generating money.
Right.
And it's like, oh, well, you guys are more don't say that because no one agrees with you.
Yeah.
Whether it's true, not true, whatever.
Yeah.
Again, just like look at the books. Like that's my thing. Like if you're fucking Fidelity and you're like, we need you guys to come back. Like we're just not, you know, like we're not as productive. Okay. Well, how much money did you generate? Oh, actually, we're up each year for the last five.
Yeah.
Yeah, not as productive, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, especially that other bill, like that's the shit that gets me excited.
So on top of that, before we wrap things up here in the sandwich episode, um, the DOGE is the Department of Government Efficiency. They have started preliminary talks to remove the penny from circulation. So I heard about this the other day, and my immediate reaction was, why the fuck do we even still have the penny? So let me see if I can pull this up quickly. Um, it costs the United States 3 cents to produce a penny. The penny that's worth 1 cent,
How much does it cost to produce a dime? Like, are we
uh,
making out on that one?
5 cents. So there's actually, so I'll get to this in a second, actually. Um, so it costs 3 cents to produce something that's only worth 1 cent. So again, the Department of Government Efficiency is like, why the fuck are we wasting money on the penny? Like, that's absurd. You know what people's comeback to that was? Well, it would increase the cost of everything because you wouldn't be able to price anything at 99 cents anymore. So you would, instead of something being 2.99, it would be $3, right? Or it would be,
No, isn't it the problem is taxes? Isn't that the problem?
I don't know.
Because,
But that's what I saw. What the
oh,
argument that I saw against it was it would increase the price of everything because you would have to go off of a zero or a five, right? If you are down to nickels, dimes, and quarters, like you wouldn't be able to market anything as, you know, 2.96, right? Or you would have to round up, right? Like if you have something like, so yeah, I guess in your case, if you have taxes, right, and something is, you know, $10 and you have a 6.25% tax, I guess you would just need to, I think that problem would solve itself because the price would end in a zero or a five. So if you multiply that by something that ends in a zero or a five, you're not going to get a wonky number. You're going to get a zero or a five. Like those are your only two options. But the argument there was again
no.
that
So
the
what I mean
prices would
is
go
like,
up.
so if you have something that's $13,
Yeah,
on a 6.25 sales tax, that's 81 cents. Well, it can't be that.
right,
So then you would have to go up to 13.85.
right.
But where's that other 4 cents go? Because if it goes to the government, then that's illegal taxation because it's
Right.
more than 625.
Right.
But if it goes to the store, then that's not an advertised price.
You would
I
that
think
they would might have to reduce it, right? Because then that would be
Yeah, but then now, so this I think this is I think this has been the problem over time. It's not the price of things, it's the price of tax because I've heard this before. Um,
so my thing too, right? Because what I was going to get to was the nickel, the cost that's worth 5 cents, costs 14 cents to make a nickel.
Yeah, so I don't think we need. So I think looking at this is like, is
My
there a cheaper
thing,
way to make these things?
well, yeah, is there a cheaper way? But also, why do we still make them?
What do you suggest we do?
Not use metal fucking change. How many people
So you,
use cash, right? Like realistically, how many people still use cash for their businesses? Very few.
but
It's not none,
remember,
obviously, but it's
but
very few.
remember, it's not about who's using the cash. It's about the prices. So you can't price things a certain way, assuming that this person won't pay cash.
So maybe you have a cash price and you have a digital price. That's how you get around it. People do that. You do that now at the gas station. Gas stations have cash prices and card prices. The gun store in Woburn that I bought my gun from, they have cash prices and they have card prices.
Right, but remember which way it goes.
It's cheaper if you pay. Yeah,
Cash is
it's
usually the discount
right,
because that's the one that's the legal tender of the country, so you can't get rid of it.
right.
So I guess, well, and then, but that comes back to it. Then which number gets sacrificed? Is it the tax? Because again, the tax cannot be higher than what it is posted. Because then it's illegal. Because then that goes right back to throwing the fucking tea in the harbor. It's
Yeah,
illegal
so then the
taxation.
cash price would come down, right? So on a $13 charge, right,
So
with the
it came out to
625 tax,
1381.
your cash price would be 1380, right? Or you just knock off all of it and call it $13, right?
When has the government ever not collected their maximal amount of money?
Well, yeah, I know. I understand that, but people already get squirrely with cash anyway.
That's my
That's
thing,
the
dude.
that's
It's
the whole
just
point of a cash business. It's like, oh, what'd you do in sales today? Oh, like $100. How come you have $1,000 in your register? No, 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 no. I only sold $100 worth of merchandise. Like
yeah.
that's the reason why you have a cash business.
I think that, and then the other piece is it's all taxes because you can no longer use fractions. So everything has to end up being whole.
Right.
And I think that ultimately is the problem. I believe. I believe because some people have broken this down. They're like, like you can't get rid of the penny because it fucks everything up.
Right.
And it doesn't fuck anything up when you buy clothes. Because if something is $15, it's $15.
Right.
In like non-prepared food, like regular grocery, you're good. No more bottle deposits you can do. Um, but because that's all fives and tens. So yeah, I think that ultimately is the problem because I don't know what you do there.
Right.
Because then if Massachusetts, because what will happen is if Massachusetts starts seeing it's like, oh well, the tax is 625, but we round down for cash. Well, why don't we just make it 6.5? And then that way we get our taxes. Full knowing that now the tax rate just went up for no fucking reason.
Yeah.
And that's a federal mandate that would affect the state level stuff, which would drive people fucking crazy. No, it would, because it's like,
Yeah. No, it's
because the
true.
state would be like, oh, well, if we have to round down, like that's cool, but we have to increase the tax rate.
Right. Right. So, yeah. Government, well, the federal government is trying, right? Trump is at least they have programs out that they're trying. They in some cases they are, right, with the ending the $50 million to Gaza for condoms, and then with DOGE and the penny and all this other shit and the return to office for employees and the furloughs and they're trying, right? So I
I
applaud
mean,
them
that's
for
the
that.
questions. I'm good. I just think
Yeah,
because I've heard the penny one before, and it's like I think that's the issue. But it's like, yeah, I mean, ask the relevant questions. But also, if you're telling me that, well, the penny's too expensive because it costs 3 cents to make, but a nickel costs 14 cents, then I'd be like,
yeah. Why don't we just get rid of the
so
nickel?
the penny's the problem?
Right,
The
right,
penny's not the problem.
right. Get rid of the nickel and then make the penny cheaper. Oh, but what are we gonna do with who's on who's on the nickel? Is it Jefferson?
I think it is.
Yeah. Oh, what are we gonna do with Jefferson?
Won't he be fine on the? No, that's Jackson.
Jackson's on the 20. And the dime. Did Jackson get two?
No, the dime is Roosevelt.
Oh,
I assume Teddy.
yeah. I don't know. I haven't seen change in a very long time. I mean, obviously everyone knows Lincoln. So Lincoln got two. He got the penny and the five. Washington got two, right? He's got the quarter and the one. Hamilton's on the 10. Jackson's on the 20.
The
Grant's
greatest
on
president
Grant's on the 50, and then the greatest president in history is
on
on
the
the
100,
$100 bill.
inventor of currency.
Yeah. Yeah, so then it's Jefferson on the nickel. You said it was Roosevelt on the dime.
Roosevelt dimes.
Yeah. So, all right. You want to wrap this up?
We can wrap this up. Uh, I would like to present to you the 1904 marathon or Olympic marathon. Uh, some of the shenanigans. And there was a better actually I should have saved the Twitter thing. There was a better breakdown on Twitter. So the first to arrive at the finish line was Frederick Loors. And, they took his picture, they put it on him, gave him the gold medal, whatever. Uh, Turns out he didn't actually run the race. He's dropped out of the race after 9 miles, hitched a ride back to the stadium in a car. And when the car broke down at the 19th mile, he re-entered the race and jogged across the finish line. So he was outed by the spectators and whoever that saw him. Um, and he ended up like, whatever, fine. Um, there was a Cuban, Underin Carvajal, and he joined the marathon at the last second after he lost all his money gambling in New Orleans. He hitchhiked to St. Louis, ran the event in street clothes, put his pants into shorts, didn't eat for the last 40 hours. Saw a spectator eating two peaches, asked him for some peaches. They didn't give it to him, so he stole the peaches, ran away, ended up in an apple orchard, ate the apples, which were rotten. They gave him really, really bad stomach cramps, so he laid down, took a nap. After that, finished the race. He was your fourth place finisher. Your first place finisher. His name was Thomas Hicks. Uh, although aided by various measures that would not have been permitted in later years. Uh, so he led the race, but he had to be restrained from stopping laying down by his trainers. Until
Was
the
he
end of the race,
drinking
he
baking
received
soda?
several doses of strychnine, a
Strychnine?
common rat poison,
Yeah.
which stimulates the nervous system in small doses, mixed with brandy and egg white. This was the earliest recorded use of performance-enhancing drugs. He continued to battle onwards, hallucinating, and he was barely able to walk for most of the course. When he reached the stadium, his support team carried him over the finish line, holding him in the air when he shuffled his feet as if he was still running. And then he had to be carried off on a stretcher. And if they didn't find him there, he would have died in the stadium. He lost 8 pounds during the course of the
Jesus.
race,
He was the winner?
and he was the winner. And they talked about um like there was no water available. It was just like a fucking mess. And I'll try to find um how much slower it was. It was like something crazy. Like, and this was actually, so this was in St. Louis too. St. Louis in the summer, August. It was something like way, way, way slower than the
Oh,
previous one.
the winning time was 3 hours, 28 minutes, and 53 seconds.
Yeah, and I forget what the time.
1900 was 2 hours and 59 minutes and
Yeah, it was 29
45
minutes
seconds.
slower.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, it was a half hour slower than the previous year, which was the second slowest.
And then in
And
1908, it went back to 2 hours and 55 minutes.
yeah, uh, finishers, the starters, only 14 people finished, 32 took place, and yeah, a couple guys almost died too,
That's hilarious.
and a couple guys, I guess, were chased off course by wild dogs. So that all happened in the 1904 marathon
Yeah, the Summer
in the
Olympics.
Olympics.
Yeah, that's
Kind of
hilarious.
crazy.
What a crazy time. 120 years ago. So let me pull up my final thought here. Oh, that's right. Um, so sticking with the politics thing and the new Trump administration, um, he did a great thing. Another great thing, actually. He lifted the federal ban on menthol tobacco.
But still statewide.
Yeah, I think state by state, they can still choose to ban it, but he withdrew the menthol ban from the federal government that Joe Biden put into place. So all the black people are gonna love Trump because when Biden put it in, he mentioned that he said, he said something about black people and menthol cigarettes or whatever. And everyone just kind of like, you know, turned a blind eye to it as they did for 4 years whenever he spoke. Um, and it's like, hey man, that's kind of racist, right? Like, but again, no one questioned him because you couldn't.
He didn't really
Um,
mean things.
yeah. But then Trump comes in, he goes, yeah, this is fucking stupid. We're not banning menthol. It's just menthol tobacco in general, right? So what it did was it wasn't just cigarettes, which was the other thing that kind of made it a little bit more racist when Biden put this out there was he was talking about menthol cigarettes and black people. But what it really did also was like chewing tobacco. Like you couldn't have, you know, wintergreen skull, right? Or you know what I mean? Like you couldn't have mint chewing tobacco anywhere. Um, so it's gone. Trump's back. We can have some freedom again. So
Not Massachusetts, but
not
hey,
Massachusetts, but maybe in Rhode Island. Because we could get it in Rhode Island before, right? Didn't we? Because we stopped there at one point before we went somewhere, maybe to the Cape when you guys were here before we went to the Cape, I think. Um,
might have.
so yeah, shout out to Trump. Freedom is back. All right, so that's gonna do it for this episode. Thank you for watching. If you're on YouTube, subscribe up above, hit the thumbs up down below. Subscribe if you're an audio only guy. You can get us on Instagram at Sarcasm Speaks Pod. Twitter is sarcasm_speaks. Facebook is sarcasm speaks. Check out the show notes, support the sponsors, support us. And until next time, good night, everyone.